Wisconsin, and so was Republican Vice Presidential nominee J.D. Vance. The plane was on the tarmac, not far from Air Force Two.
I don't think the Vice President waved at me as she drove away, but I'm glad to have done it.
Vance said he wanted to check out the plane. He says he will start using it next year. Tropical Storm Debbie is expected to make a second landfall early tomorrow in South Carolina and then head up the East Coast with flooding rainfall. The White House says it had no advance knowledge of Ukraine's surprise attack on Russia's Kursk region. More than a dozen construction workers were hospitalized after an improper mix of chemicals at Great Wolf Lodge in Texas. This is ABC trying to calm the unrest. The new British Prime Minister blamed the far-right instigators for spreading rumors online following a deadly stabbing at a children's dance party.
The British government Wednesday after Elon Musk said on social media,
over 400 people arrested, 100 being charged, one in relation to ongoing activity, and a number of more already reported.
This has made Muslims more leniently than far-right activists. The violence on the streets here has been going on now for more than a week. BBC News Live.
A California woman's facing charges for allegedly taking a sword, steel whip, a knife, and other weapons into the Capitol during the January 6th insurrection. Ocean temperatures in the Great Barrier Reef hit their highest level in 400 years over the past decade. Daria Albany, ABC News.
Hey, Chris.
We need to stop and thaw out.
No way, Jake. Gas around here is too expensive. We do make it a little further.
Listen to your big sister. You don't need to drive all over searching for the lowest gas prices.
It's not on my end.
Use Upside.
Upside?
I don't.
Upside is the
Oh.
cashback app.
No, it's on the other. It's Chris. He just muted himself. I mean, Kyle. He just muted himself.
I use it all the time, and I've already made around $200.
You can make that kind of cash back just for buying the gas.
I don't know.
Yes, I'm looking at the.
I have no idea, man, because I don't have any mics open right now.
Offering 25 cents per gallon cashback.
Okay, I'm stopping to download Upside and fill up my tank. Download the free Upside app now to earn cash
All right, man.
every time you buy gas. Use promo code COIN25.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Common Sense Conservatives. Having a little bit of technical difficulty, but we're working it out here. Todd McKinley will not be joining us tonight. He is very, very busy. He's got prior obligations, but we do have Chris Wyatt with us and our guest Kyle Sinclair. Chris, I'll start with you. How are things going up here in South Central Pennsylvania?
Hey, John, how's it going? I'll tell you, something's not right in the studio, that's for sure, because I'm hearing the cars go by, and it sounds like you're talking through a tin cup, but we'll make the best of it. Hopefully the audience can hear you okay. Listen, all I've got to say is ding dong, the witch is dead, the witch is dead, the wicked witch is dead. Cori Bush is out! Yes! Another squad member hits the dust. She bites at us. Along with Sparky the fire dog, Jamal Bowman, that little lunatic is gone. Busy running around public schools in New York City now, pulling down fire alarms. Sparky the fire dog. Anyway, we'll have a good hour this hour, I'm sure, and then we got a lot to talk about tonight, including Elon Musk leaving San Francisco, the United Kingdom on fire, and the lunacy going on around the world. We've got a guest tonight there, John. Do you want to introduce our guest before we take him on here?
I do.
Brother, you sound perfect now. You fixed it.
Yeah, I figured it out. Holy crap. These technology will get the best of you every time, I guarantee it. So, ladies and gentlemen, we do have Kyle Sinclair with us, straight out of San Antonio, Texas. Kyle, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. How are you, John?
I'm doing excellent. Would you like to give our listeners a little bit of background about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Kyle Sinclair, you just mentioned in San Antonio, Texas, by way of political, I was the Republican nominee for U.S. Congress, Texas 20. That's against the socialist Joaquin Castro in the midterm of 22. So, just last cycle. Currently, I am the vice chair for the Republican Party in Bexar County, San Antonio, Texas. By way of professionalism, I am a CEO of a hospital. So, I do have credible experience and learned a lot and still stay very, very active on current topics. So appreciate the opportunity to come talk to you guys.
Absolutely. So, you're work in the medical field, but we kind of brought you in today. We developed a topic based on Project 2025 and its counterpart. What do you think about Project 2025?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm doing as best I think as everybody else to learn about it. It's made a lot of headway, and particularly it's one of those topics that Democrats think they're going to hang their hat and hang it against Trump's neck to take him and JD Vance down. From what I'm reading on it, there's a lot of conservative values, and it mirrors a lot of what even Trump 47 agenda is. So very closely to it. So, I mean, I've watched it and started doing a little bit of reading on it and research on it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Rowe was his last name. I can't think of his first name. Robert, I think Robert Rowe has been speaking a lot on it, had some speaking engagements and stuff. And he said just that he had built it around the Trump agenda. And the
Yeah.
concept was that it was supposed to be an agenda for the next conservative president, whether it was Trump or somebody else. And a lot of people, I think, have been taking it out of context. You think that's basically what they're doing? Is they're trying to just use it to blast the right and really just taking it out of context?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I heard Ben Shapiro when he was testifying on the Hill talk about it that it's like the Tinkerbell, right? You say it loud enough, it actually brings to life their their candidate, and they have a dying party with no policies, and they can't stand on credible experience because we can all see very clearly the 4 years of Trump and the 3.5 years of Biden, what that is. So again, they have nothing to stand on. So again, that's a shadow objective to be able to push this on President Trump and the conservatives that support his mission of America first and making America great again.
Absolutely. They are grasping at straws, aren't they? And I noticed Kamala Harris seems to show up wherever they're having events at the Trump campaign. Kamala Harris is right behind them.
Yeah, I just saw today. I saw JD Vance on the tarmac with soon to be illegitimate nominee for the Democratic Party, Kamala Harris, going to talk to reporters and asking questions, and they're taking the same strategy, right? They did with Biden, hiding them in the basement, hiding her in the basement, not letting her in. The reporters ask questions, which they wouldn't do anyways. So it's a crazy world right now in the political scene.
Well, I'm not a fan of JD Vance, that's for darn sure, but I will give him major props because their planes arrived at the same time. Rather than sit on his rather plump bottom like she did on the plane, he gets off the plane, he walks down, and the reporters are waiting on her. So he walks over and goes, "Hey, I'll take your questions since she won't."
Yeah. I mean, there's some classic strategy, on that, Carl. We talked last session with John and one of their other podcasts, and that was, JD Vance is an interesting pick to me. I don't know a whole lot about him. I think, like myself, the nation's trying to learn who he is and what he stands for, and obviously he hasn't passed, and I think there's some different VP picks that would have been stronger to pick up different votes. Obviously, President Trump's very savvy, knows what the hell he's doing, and has a very good team, hopefully, around him, advising him, and in all regards, JD Vance has stepped up, and everything I've seen and watched from him from the nomination forward, it has done a very good job.
Well, whether we like JD Vance or not, it really doesn't matter, as I told people at the end of the day, because we're not voting based on the vice presidential pick. All the negative press that they piled on Sarah Palin had no impact. They blamed her for McCain losing the election. But McCain lost the election because of the stupid behavior he had in the last 3 weeks of the campaign when he was going to rush back to D.C. and save the country. Dude, you're one of 100 senators. Sit down and shut up. Obama did make that stupid claim, and he rose in the polls while you look like a fool. No, so that's 100%. That's silly. But, let's go back to Project 25 real quick. I've got to say that I challenge people to come forward, those who are honest, and tell me they actually read the 900 pages of this sleep-inducing novel written by postgrads who are looking for fame as commentators in the conservative world. It's really just a compilation of conservative ideals that we've been expressing since Reagan. And that's really what it is. Just put in a format that if you don't have Ambien, read Project 2025. Okay. I mean, and the left is trying to make something out of it, but it's not working because leftists are too lazy. They don't read anything more than Dilbert. That's all they read for breakfast. You know, they can't comprehend anything beyond Dilbert or, you know, Garfield. So they're not going to go much further than that. And they're not going to read 900 pages. Look, I've got it. I've gone through it. I'm a political scientist, a university lecturer, I'm published author in academic circles, and it put me to sleep. There's some good stuff in it, no doubt about it. But the point is that this is a much ado about nothing from the standpoint that this is never going to be implemented. Trump didn't come up with it. He had nothing to do with it. They're just trying to try it around his neck. But let me ask you a question. It is August, and it is San Antonio. I worked at the National Security Agency, and for some strange reason, every year in August, they sent me to San Antonio, and I thought I was going to die. I see your fans blowing up there. How's the weather down there? Is it any cooler because of storms?
Oh no, it's hot as hell, man. I got my car today. It was 110 reading outside, and it's blazing hot. You know, we did a press release at the courthouse yesterday, and I mean, by the time I'm done, I'm completely drenched, right? So no, it's hot. San Antonio is a great city, military USA. We have tons of cybersecurity. A lot of intelligence agencies are based in here, and it's a great booming economy and a growing city. So with a lot of issues. So.
Yeah, no, it's a great town. I'm not trying to slight San Antonio. I'm just I don't get why the Cowboys used to have if they still have their camp there, because I would have it somewhere a little bit cooler. I think that's just to weed out the rookies or something. But in August, San Antonio is not the place you want to be, man. It is way too hot. But it's a beautiful town. But the one saving grace, though, is if you're downtown, get down to Riverwalk. The trees are there. It's cooler, and it's much more pleasant. Nice place to walk around in the evening.
Yeah,
that heat is great to condition in.
If you say so. I'm a little old for that conditioning there, John. Thank you for that.
No, on the Project 2025 thing, though, I think that a lot of people miss it. There's 4 pillars to Project 2025. It's not just a playbook. There goes Chris, fast asleep on the microphone. So no, the thing that people miss, though, it's an outline. It's not a complete and total strategy. It's an outline, and their strategy behind it is, if you feel inclined to participate, please do sign up, and we'll modify the playbook. And a lot of people, nobody's told this, you know, because I reached out to them because I saw what they said about the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, which regulates the trucking industry. That's me. And I didn't like what they said because they were basically given the idea that they'd much rather put autonomous vehicles ahead of drivers. And I'm like, wait, no, this ain't right. So I contacted them, and they actually said, you know, well, we would like to keep you in mind for consideration when issues come up for the trucking industry. So they're looking for participants, or not just looking for, you know, one playbook. This is it. It's done, and, you know, it's not written in stone.
All righty.
I see Chris's eyes. But now a lot of people also don't understand there's a counterpart, because the left also have their playbook.
Yeah,
nobody
but
talks about
that like
this.
5 years ago, you know, and you're talking about the same thing you're talking about from the Brookings Institute. Is that the one you're talking about? Yeah. That's definitely look.
Oh, when you get into that one, now that is a sleeper. But when you get into that one,
that's definitely one that'll definitely solve your sleep issues there.
Yeah, you will not have
no doubt about it.
Trying to read that,
or you might just be gobsmacked and shocked at just how I don't know what's the word I want to say here. Cheeky they are. That's probably the right term. Cheeky.
The left likes to criticize the right on Project 2025, but when you look at the Brookings Institute, you look at the DNC and how they're aligning, and you look at what's going on in this new world order out of the United Nations, it's all the same. And they talk about this stuff, the DEI from the United Nations. They talk about this in the Brookings Institute. It's nonsensical. It's a nonsensical agenda. Plain and simple. There's nothing to it that brings quality to life. It just brings more chaos.
Well, I'm not sure, Kyle. So I'm a little behind the curve tonight. Did we have you on as one of our co-hosts tonight, or are you our guest tonight? I think you're our guest to talk about 2025. Before I diss over 2025, let me find out clear where we're at.
Yeah, I'm absolutely okay with not. I'm not an expert at Project 2025 and conservative, but I'm open to talk about any subject that.
Okay, cool beans. I just want to make sure I don't want to put you in the spot here before we start talking about it.
Kyle asked for a topic, so that's a topic I threw at him. But he's here for our first half hour, Chris.
Just the first half hour. Then let's get on to something really important here. Let's talk about the worst vice presidential pick in a century for either party. Do you think that's a fair statement, Kyle?
Yeah, I mean, I think I heard your stance on JD Vance, but definitely for Kamala Harris, I think she went from
Oh,
one
no,
awful.
yeah, I'm talking about Tim Walz. I'm not talking about JD Vance.
And I thought so, but yeah, so I think Kamala Harris went from one creepy old dead dude to the next creepy old socialist. So it's interesting the dialogue between the two, but for me, what I find alarming and actually somewhat scary is you still have people believing into their ideology, and of course the media is hiding, and she's not having to answer, and which is what JD Vance is trying to say. You're 17 days in to the quote unquote nomination, and you haven't answered a single damn question about your stances and policies when you were listed as the most radical senator in the United States Senate. And then you pick a very radical governor who destroyed the great state of Minnesota, who completely supported criminals' illegal activity, who supported BLM riots, who supported transgender. I mean, the list goes on and on. So that duo, if they get into country and into power, is literally a wrecking ball and a destruction for this country.
Well, Kyle, I'm really puzzled because when I listen to the progressive left, it's all about the patriarchy and evil white men, how terrible they are. Did I miss something, or did she pick an old white dude to be a running mate?
Yeah.
Progressive heads must be exploding around the country right now.
Yeah, some of the dialogue stuff is absolutely hilarious. I was talking to somebody at work today about the Elon Musk parody that he put out, the AI-driven one of Harris, and Gavin Newsom chimes in, and Elon Musk responds. There's just some you can't help but laugh at some of the stuff, but actually, on a serious note, it truly is quite scary if they do get into power and what they will do to this country, to our freedoms, our constitutions. I know you mentioned something about England. I'm talking to a lot of people about what's going on over in the across the pond, and one of my brothers mentioned it too, and Jason in Houston. And what I said to him was, yeah, he's like, oh, it's going to happen here in the U.S. I said, yeah, the only difference is we have a Second Amendment, right? The UK has no guns.
You've
right?
hit it. Well, pretty much no guns. They're pretty much
Correct.
disarmed. Yeah,
Correct.
But you're spot on, and we've already seen this movie play out in Australia during the lockdown, the COVID scam.
Yep.
We saw Australian authorities arrest people, and one of the very first arrests was a 7-month pregnant woman who's already a mother. She was headed to the OBGYN for an ultrasound when 4 cops in body armor showed up at her house, knocked on the door. It was recorded. This was shared on social media. And they came in and they put her in handcuffs and arrested her and put her in her squad car pregnant. The cuffs behind her back, not in front of her back, because she posted on Facebook encouraging people to attend an anti-lockdown rally.
Yeah.
That's not a crime in Australia, but she was in prison for it.
And they're doing that in the UK right now. There are people that are actively saying that. I mean, so it is, I don't think we'll ever get to that point in America, but we're not far off from it.
But this isn't new in the UK. 2 years ago, a 51-year-old British veteran of the Iraq campaign was arrested because he retweeted that meme where that guy took the gay pride flag and put it in the shape of a swastika, 4 flags. People just kind of laughed at that. Even a lot of gay folks laughed at it because they thought it was silly. But someone complained it didn't like him. They showed up at his house, arrested him, and detained him and put him in jail. Darren Hadley, I think his name was. This is unbelievable. I mean, the laws public order law is written so loose that anything that the leftists deem is evil. I mean, look, if we're talking about the UK here, what's happening right now is that people in extreme right are attacking Muslims on the street, but it's in response to Muslims carrying scimitars and swords and walking down the street and beating up white residents of the UK all over the place, in Manchester, in Southport, up in Sutherland, all over the country, and none of that's being reported by the media. The only reason you're finding this stuff is social media. People are sharing it, and we're talking about reliable sources, not just wackadoodles. It's crazy what's going on here. It's a dual system of law just here.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing, just even last week when Netanyahu, the prime minister over in Israel, came across, you saw exactly what happened. They defaced our statues. They absolutely, the stuff that was going on was absolutely a disgrace. Burning the flag, yeah, it's not a national law, or it's not breaking a law. And that I understand in America, you have the ability to do that. But the defacing of property when you're a legal immigrant or you work here on a work visa or whatever your stance is, absolutely disagreeing what's going on. We're not too far off from some of these other crazy countries. And again, if America can't fight back in the beacon of freedom, where else do we have in this country?
There's nothing. There's nothing. This is the last.
Nothing. exactly.
The last outpost of freedom. Reagan
Yep.
said it. He got it right. But you're right. But it's worse than that, Kyle. I mean, this is akin to occupying a federal courthouse in Seattle and then squaring off the property and declaring it the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone. Last time I checked, as a political scientist, that was the legal definition of an insurrection. Nobody's been charged with insurrection for an actual insurrection. And guess what happened at Union Station? A government-owned facility where they ripped down the American flag, burned it. That's free speech, according to the Supreme Court. I don't agree, but they burned it, and then they raised the Palestinian flag. That is an insurrection. They have occupied U.S. territory and raised a foreign flag. Their allegiance is not to America. These people should be under federal charges right now.
Yeah, and for me, I followed it closely prior, before, during, and after, and what I found absolutely phenomenal was some of our soldiers who were in U.S. Congress immediately went out after that crowd dispersed and took down that flag and re-raised the American flag. And some of that is, some of that's great, and I know there's bills being proposed right now that if you deface any federal property or governmental property, including statues, that your visa or your work status or anything like that, you can actually be deported from America, which 100% support. It needs to be very, very strong that we do not put up and stand up for criminals. Now, that's also a bad problem for Minnesota, right? Because that governor absolutely supports defacing, supported BLM, and created billions of dollars during the BLM riots of the summer of 2020, which also is considered, like you mentioned, an insurrection. So, yeah, we got some problems with on the left side. They've become more radical. I hope that people see it very clearly, and the media is not going to show it.
But Kyle, I think you're just being overly sensitive, my friend. I mean, listen, I heard. I mean, listen. I mean,
I love when you bring your voice down. I can absolutely,
This guy hunts. He ice fishes. He's one of those guys.
He's a teacher and a coach.
He talks about rural America and how Donald Trump doesn't understand it.
Yeah.
I have been told this by the most erudite and informed of all journalists that captured Brett Baier on the Fox No News Network.
Yeah, this is the same guy that was in, Iraq and actually ran during time of war and didn't support a bill giving veterans. Yeah, this is the same guy that did all this stuff. So again, you can believe what you hear. You can believe actually what the truth is. So the message will not get out. I mean, they don't have to debate. Her crowds on Kamala Harris's crowds are fake. They're put up by free concerts by artists, and then she comes in and speaks. I mean, that stuff is just absolutely fake on what's going on.
Oh, that was definitely a rent-a crowd in Philadelphia.
Yeah. The videos are funny because right after she started speaking, you saw people started leaving. It was kind of funny.
Well, I mean, look, did you see the Amazon spokesperson who uses profanity for commercials on social media? Megan Thee Stallion did a concert, and they go on about Simon Ateba, the perpetually persecuted African journalist. Simon Ateba, always trying to pretend that he's objective, on his Twitter account said that, look at the big crowds, the huge crowds. Yeah, they all left 2 minutes after Megan Thee Stallion left the stage. I mean, a photograph from 5 minutes later was the backside of people leaving the building. Yeah, it's just a rent-a-crowd. But listen, you talk about Brett Baier. It reminds me of the Gulf War. Bernard Shaw, CNN. I'm hiding under the table. Peter Arnett's looking out the window. He's so brave. Oh, Peter, get down. You're going to get hurt. Oh, my goodness. I'll never forget that. I didn't see it live because, of course, I was in the crap. I was in the war. But I did see it after the fact, the video from that broadcast. Bernard Shaw. He'll never live that one down, hiding under the table. It was pretty interesting. But anyway, but Brett Baier says he's just a regular guy, man. He hunts, he fishes. Apparently, he doesn't own a home. He doesn't have any stocks and bonds. No wonder he doesn't care if the world falls apart. He has no stake in it.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, again, policy and theory is great to talk about until you have to execute, which is what I think the Republican Party is about now, the party of the people, and making sure that people are taken care of, right? So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, Kyle, you served in uniform for a few years. Today is Purple Heart Day. I recognize those who've been wounded in combat or passed in combat as a consequence of their wounds. August 7th of every year. It's also coincidentally my mother's birthday. Had she survived the COVID scam, she would be 79 today. So happy birthday to my mother. Yep.
COVID scam. I love that. That's a good.
That's what it was. It was, and I said it from the beginning, and that's why I was censored. And I'm not some wackadoodle. I didn't tell people to put bleach in themselves. I didn't tell people not to get the jab. I didn't tell people it wasn't real. I spent 30 years studying epidemiology. So I told people that what they were doing isn't how you respond. And it's a scam. It's about control.
That one was kind of interesting to me. I mean, I was the CEO of a hospital during the time of COVID, and then I ran for Congress. That was in 2020, right? In 2022, I had a conversation with President Trump's deputy director, who actually helped lead the project for Warp Speed on the COVID vaccine. And she said when I talked to her in 2022, said that she was in Mar-a-Lago with President Trump, and President Trump asked her a question, and she asked me the same question the day before, which was, did we rush out the COVID vaccine too soon? And that was, I had some dialogue with her, and spent a lot of time and heartache through COVID, and definitely as the lockdowns and all the rights started coming through. But yeah, I mean, I've spent a lot of time speaking on COVID.
Yeah, no doubt. I'm sure in that industry, but I mean, look, I'm not going to criticize the rollout. It was unprecedented what they did. They took a lot of the measures in place that delay the delivery of vaccines by a long time, but there's a good reason why they do that. And one can make the argument is a good reason why they took those safety measures out this time. And the problem I have with it is that they gave these companies immunity, which is crap. That's not acceptable. And that to me proves the problem. The other problem I had with it was that just the lack of common sense was applied. I mean, in Alabama,
100%.
They had a church service at a drive-in movie theater in which people kept 2 car lengths apart. Their windows were up. They're wearing masks inside their car, and the sheriff comes and arrests people and then threatens the priest, who's not even at the site because he's broadcasting over the screen. It's just
there's so many stories that we could spend hours talking about that.
Exactly.
The one thing I came up, and the biggest thing I said when I was running for Congress, and I still believe that, is if you allow the government to break a law during an emergency, they will always create an emergency to break the law. And I think that's the biggest thing for us, is that we lost individual rights and freedoms protected by a God-given constitution that we still to this day have not gotten back. And that's the biggest thing I had for me on that stance, and would continue to push back.
100% agree with you. You know, we just came within a hair's breadth of having a massive lawbreaker who failed to do his job as the Attorney General of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania by not upholding the law during the lockdown, allowing Tom Wolf to violate the Commonwealth's Constitution and the federal Constitution, and so determined by a federal judge, John Stickman, in the Western District of Pennsylvania. A federal judge stated that this guy was violating the Constitution. He didn't have the authority to do it, and we're still dealing with the consequences, people's lives. You know, these clowns sent all these COVID positive patients into our nursing homes, and over 70,000 elderly died in Pennsylvania alone, courtesy of Tom Wolf. These are crimes against humanity. And, my unsuccessful bid, because the Republican establishment didn't want someone who tells the truth and has honor, my unsuccessful bid in the primary this year is unfortunate because, and I'll tell people to this now, I didn't share it during my campaign, but one of my attempts at getting into the state legislature in Pennsylvania was to spend my time reminding people that Tom Wolf committed crimes against humanity, and so did Josh Shapiro, and these people should be held account for their actions, because grandma, grandpa, aunts, and uncles are all dead because morons sent people with what they claim was the most dangerous pathogen since the Spanish influenza, which didn't come from Spain. It was first recognized in Kansas. But anyway, the Spanish influenza, and they sent people with those diseases into nursing homes, the people who are septuagenarians, octogenarians, nultogenarians, centenarians who have compromised immune systems. It doesn't take a medical professional to realize that that's probably not a good idea. Just saying.
Yeah, I mean, the thing I do say, I'm proud of Texas. I'm grateful Governor Abbott did a pretty damn good job. Attorney General Ken Paxton did a great job on protecting that. What you did see is that the counties, including some district attorneys, as well as some local police and our Metro Health, had way too much power and direction, even given from the governor, to enact what they decided was best on that. So I could speak forever on it. The very, 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 very beginning of COVID was a little bit scary because we didn't know what caused it, stopped it, how you spread it. We didn't know anything about it. But just like any disease, and this is a big thing I keep saying, is that it's not a COVID vaccine because a vaccine eradicates a disease. Measles, mumps, TB, polio, chickenpox, those are eradicated for the most part. If you get the vaccine, they're eradicated. This is not. This is a virus, which is why it continued to mutate, become less lethal and more transmissible. And it didn't matter if you had a mask, vaccinated or not, and why people were getting it. And it became less lethal, which is why now it's like the common flu. So it is a virus.
But I mean, that is the nature of viruses. They evolve.
Correct.
RNA changes, because if you are a slate wiper, then you have no host.
Yep.
So, for instance, we see this with Ebola, the Ebola virus, which broke out into human knowledge in the Congo in the 1960s, and it's then we also had other versions of filoviruses like Marburg. but this thing came out there and it used to wipe out 85 to 90% of the people that contracted it. But we saw it appear in the Mono River region of West Africa when I was based in the African Union, and Liberia, Guinea, and Sierra Leone. And it was pretty frightening, pretty scary. But the mortality rate wasn't 80 or 90%. Over the years, now this variant of the virus was down to about 25 to 30%, which is horrific. That's a deadly situation. But 25 to 30% is not the 85% that we're accustomed to seeing. So that makes it, because if it wipes out its host, it can't propagate and survive. And that's the whole purpose, DNA, RNA trying to replicate, reproduce, and have another generation. And so that's what was going to happen with COVID. Just like any other virus, it's going to the version that is the least deadly, that can stay in the host the longest and survive, is the one that's going to get the most success. And that's what we're seeing now. Anyway, but you're in San Antonio. This is the home, of course, of Fort Sam Houston, the Army's medical school and headquarters. What's it like down there working in a hospital? Do you have any interaction with Fort Sam Houston or no?
Yeah, all the time. I meet with actually the command general and the base commander regularly. We're one of the top vendors. Our hospital system are receiving Army veterans, beneficiaries, and their families. So we do a lot, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of patients every year, taking care of the veterans. So it's a big community. Obviously, as a prior vet myself, love spending time in there and taking care of them. So they're one of our level 1 trauma centers. So they do phenomenal work, world-renowned hospital, and great to work and be part of the community here.
No, that's awesome. And you've got a huge military community there with Lackland Air Force Base. And as you mentioned, there's some intelligence activity down there. And of course, it's the headquarters for those who've served in uniform and their family members and descendants. If you're eligible, one of the most successful insurance, and banking, used to be investment, but no longer investment, but insurance and banking corporations. Yeah. And it caters to military, USAA, right there, formed by 7 Army officers who were angry that they couldn't get, good deals on car insurance in the 1920s and 30s. And they said, this is nonsense. Every time we move, they give us the highest rates because it's a different state. And so they founded USAA, and here we are a century later. But Kyle, San Antonio, it's an interesting place. I enjoyed my time down there, even though they sent me in August. I thought that was a cruel joke. I bet you if I went to San Antonio in November, I'd be in heaven.
Yeah, it's not bad in November. Yeah, it's definitely gets hot, but beautiful city, great people, great food, great culture. We got a lot of work to do in the city to get better, and hopefully, see some changes in the races here in November. But definitely, I'm looking forward to 2025. Our mayoral race is up, and multiple city council seats that we think we have a great opportunity to flip conservative and actually bring some big changes to the city that's much needed.
Well, that's awesome. Before we leave you, Kyle, if I can get you, let me get your thoughts, the comment on what I talked about earlier. And that, of course, the squad members, Sparky, the fire dog, Jamal Bowman, and then now Corey Bush are out. That leaves Ayanna Presley, Ileana Omar, Rashida Tlaib, and Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez that we've got to knock off the perch.
Yeah, so, a couple of things I'll say. One of the next closest one is Greg Cesar out of the Austin area, which covers the north tip of San Antonio. So we got one, not too far from the backyard, and who I ran against in 2022 is, one of the biggest socialists, Joaquin Castro, right? So, we have our fair share of those socialist liberal elites that, their policies are horrible and they're just garbage. They have no real true policies to stand on, and live in this utopia of where they think, free and everything is ridiculous. I mean, we have major migrant issues and crime issues that these people just don't get it. I don't understand how you can live and see stuff. And again, shout out to Governor Abbott and busing illegal immigrants to these sanctuary cities, and they get a taste and dose of what's going on since the media weren't covering it. So, we could talk forever on that, but yeah, I'm absolutely glad. I hope this country sees some of the liberalness and that has destroyed this country, and hopefully vote this November, and hopefully we're not cheated out of an election, and it's a fair, free, and honest, transparent election, and we get to move forward this country, but we'll see.
Kyle, listen, I have to take exception once again to your characterization of events. Listen, from my perch in Martha's Vineyard, I must tell you that you're simply a callous, white privileged individual, part of the patriarchy. You just don't understand how we have destroyed all the countries around the world with our greed and our imperialism, and they all deserve a chance to come here for free iPods. And I'm sorry if your family members are assaulted or robbed, but that's just because you don't live in Martha's Vineyard. If you were up here, you would get it.
So I got 2 things I'll leave you with. So number one, I just posted this week about the viral receipt, an EBT card receipt that's going around, $13,000 and $5,000 cash. which is going viral. And I think that should absolutely make every American furious, and particularly our veterans that are they're not taken care of by this administration, and particularly many in this country. So that's one. The second one, the Martha Vineyard, is kind of a funny story. So when I was running for Congress in 22, I got a call from one of the governing or the board of directors from NRA, National Board of Directors, who said, "Hey, Governor Abbott, or not Abbott, excuse me, Governor DeSantis wants to know if you'll shoot a video in front of the migrant center." I'm like, "Yeah, what's going on?" So what happened is those migrants that Governor DeSantis moved to Martha's Vineyard came from San Antonio. We have a massive migrant center here that processes about 1,000 illegal immigrants every single day, bust in. And so I said, "Yeah, I'll shoot a video." So I shot a video. That thing went national, made national news, social media, pissed off the sheriff. And I mean, it was a great time, and had a lot of fun calling people out and bringing light to some issues that still are unresolved in this country and in this city.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. I do remember the fact that the irony is that they weren't coming from Florida, but DeSantis involved. They did get up there from Texas. I didn't know that you were involved in that. That's interesting. But you know what? Listen, these people are simply afraid to call those folks what they are. Listen, this is a country that welcomes legal immigrants. It welcomes visitors who come here responsibly, who enter our country legitimately, and have a purpose here, whether it's university, tourism, visiting family and friends, investment, whatever you're doing, as long as you're here legitimately and you spend the time you're allowed to be here and you leave, and you're welcome to come back. And if you're a permanent green card holder because you're trustworthy and you're part of our society, then you are welcome here and you're welcome to our protections. But however, if you violate our sovereignty and your first act entering this country is criminally invaded, you are a criminal alien invader. You're not an illegal alien. You're not a migrant. You're a criminal alien invader. And that's what they should be called. I've been calling them that all along. And hopefully that phrase will eventually catch on, because that really strikes home and people get it. You are a criminal alien invader. You committed a crime to come to this country. And thank you for doing that. People need to know the social fabric of this country is being unwound. I've seen this unfold elsewhere. I've seen it unfold in the UK, and now it's coming to a violent head in the UK. I've seen unfold in Germany, where immigrants have come in. They're not immigrants, they're criminal alien invaders that were all invited in by Angela Merkel, millions of them flooding into German towns, and German girls going to the Hallenbad, the indoor swim pool, which they've done for years, wearing a one-piece swimsuit, being sexually groped, assaulted, or raped in changing rooms. And then the mayors of these towns blaming the parents, telling them, you shouldn't be allowing your daughters to go to a public swimming pool in a one-piece bathing suit. What are they supposed to wear? Burqa? I mean, get real. So, this is, people want to play the game of xenophobia and racism. Not at all. Not at all. I'm talking about people coming from all over the world who shouldn't be here. Not just from Mexico, not just from Nicaragua, not just from Chad, but what are all of these Senegalese doing in New York City? Senegal's not a country in any trouble. These are people who are economic migrants, people who are slipping in the country because the criminals who run our government. Anyway, we could talk for hours about this, I suspect, Kyle, but you've got to go. So thanks for your time.
I appreciate you guys' time, and God bless what you guys are doing, getting this message out, conservative message, and look forward to potentially might make another run at U.S. Congress in 26, midterm 26. I look forward to possibly coming back on the show later.
Well, that'd be fantastic. My experience this year with how dirty and nasty the Republican Party is, I don't think I'll run again.
Yeah, it's interesting. I heard Colonel Allen West used to be ran for governor and a bunch of other stuff. But it's interesting. He used an analogy just last week in a meeting here, which is, we've got to get to the point where we actually can paratroop into these tough areas that we're going to fight for. And District 20 in San Antonio is one of them. And I think the people actually are wanting to change. And so I look forward to hopefully being that voice. And again, God bless you guys. Appreciate the hard work, and look forward to coming back on the show.
All right, Kyle, thanks a lot. We appreciate being here. All folks. Right. Kyle Sinclair from San Antonio.
Thank you.
You're welcome. On the show there, I was a little confused this evening because I didn't realize that Todd wasn't going to be here. I guess I'm not paying close attention to our communications. That's on me.
Yeah, no, he did send us a message yesterday, I think.
I think he was just all elated that he won his primary. So I saw that, and that's the last thing I saw. I congratulate him.
Yeah. He did a Chris White, last minute. Hey guys, guess what?
Oh, come on. I tell you at least 7 minutes before the show, I'm not going to be available.
At least 7 minutes. It's a good heads up.
Yeah, but hey, today is Purple Heart Day, John.
Oh no, that's pretty awesome. I did not know that until you said so. It's hard. There's so much going on. It's hard to keep up with everything.
Well, with 3 months of Pride every year, it's kind of hard to keep track of the calendar,
I was going to say the calendar's inundated. They don't even put that stuff on the calendar anymore. They don't think veterans are really worth it anymore. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. Certainly with a lot of people, but yeah, no, Purple Heart Day, August 7th, every year. And again, that's people are awarded Purple Hearts, America's oldest military decoration. And it's awarded for some time now to those who are wounded in combat or in a terrorist action. Yeah, and protect the nation. Of course, those who die from the wounds are also awarded that. So, but you don't really want to award it posthumously. We do, unfortunately, sometimes. But many folks are recipients of the Purple Heart. And it's a very honorable award. And I think when people see it on the uniform, they should recognize it and thank the person who sacrificed something.
Absolutely.
Anyway,
Absolutely.
August 7th.
It always, every time I hear the Purple Heart, and it's not to be catty or anything, but it takes me back to that TV series MASH, where he was well, I can't think of the character's name, but he and the nurse, they were always trying to scheme things together, and she's trying to get him a Purple Heart because he got a piece of eggshell in his eye, and she goes, "Well, it is a shell, isn't it?"
That was Frank Burns.
Frank Burns, that was it. Major Frank Burns.
Yeah. Major Frank Burns. I actually went to college with a guy named Frank Burns.
Oh, did you? Yeah.
Yeah. No, in relation to the character, obviously.
But yeah, they kind of played that one off there in the TV series. But no, it's a very nice form of recognition for people that have been injured, and like you said, they sacrifice. So people coming back, man, they're losing the quality of life to protect the country.
Indeed. The nurse you're thinking of was Major Houlihan, played by Loretta Swit. Loretta Swit. Yep. Yeah, they were dating when the show started. A most improbable pair, to say the least.
Yeah, right.
And he was married. He was dating her in Korea. So, it was a good show, but it got a little too leftist towards the end. And by the time it went off the air, I didn't miss it. But I remember watching the final. But it was a good show for a long time. The movie was fantastic. I really enjoyed the movie with Elliot Gould and Donald Sutherland. Those guys, fantastic movie.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, MASH. Well, shows are founded on political basis sometimes can be good, and that was kind of good. It's an anti-conflict, but I think they were smart at the time that they did it by choosing the Korean War rather than going to Vietnam. It would have been probably never would have succeeded if they'd done the same thing about Vietnam. But obviously, the intent was to imply that what's going on in Vietnam was a bad thing too. So.
Well, they were synonymous wars, really. I mean, their existence was to repress communism, the growth of communism in the globe. I mean, there was no other reason to.
Sure, but there weren't students in Berkeley marching on campus in 1951 arguing against the Korean War. However, in 1969, they were on the campus of Berkeley. In 1970, when the show came on, they were doing that. Or 72 when it came on. So yeah, that's the point I'm making. So what they did is they poked at the Vietnam War by using something similar, Korea. But anyway, it was a good show in its time, and Alan Alda, for whatever his political leanings, is a pretty darn good actor. He's done some amazing stuff over the years, so you got to give him that. But the character Frank Burns was pretty funny. He was a little weasel, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was. He played it up well. I think Billy Painter might be joining us here in a little bit. We'll see if he pops in.
All right. Well, like I said, Ding Dong, the Wicked Witch is dead. Cori Bush is out, and she's out by 8 or 9 points, which these days is a rout. So she is out because of her ridiculous stance against America in favor of the terrorist in Hamas, and that's why she's gone. Unfortunately, the other lunatics are still there. So 2 are down, but I suppose when you commit a felony and you try to commit insurrection by interfering with official proceeding, I mean, isn't that the charge against January 6th, folks? I mean, that's what Jamal Bowman did. He tried to interfere with official proceeding and disrupt the vote by pulling a fire alarm, and then said, "Oh, I thought it was an exit." Really? Do you usually pull handles down? What do you get smart?
I thought it was an exit. He knew better.
Are you with Agent 99? Who pulls a fire alarm to open a door? Come on.
I thought it was an exit. This wasn't an escape hatch.
Does your shoe phone talk as well, Jamal?
That's crazy. No, I mean, I think it's still on, man. I don't know about you, if you've heard them rumors or not, but they were talking about, there was this theory that Congress would be sworn in by January 6th. And if they swing the House and the Senate and get control over the House and the Senate, when it comes time to vote for, electoral vote for the president, then they'll have control over both House and Senate, and they can keep Trump out. And I don't know if you've heard it now, but Jamie Raskin's suggestion that Trump won't be getting in because they'll have control on January 6th. He says it may cause a civil war, but we're going to do it. That was sort of a
I think that Jamie Raskin's had too many radiation treatments, and it's affected his brain.
Yeah. But it amazes me to think that a congressman would say this, especially after all this J6 nonsense that you just brought up. You know, we went through all this grief with them and this nonsense about insurrections and stuff. Now he's talking like this.
No, but they do this all the time. And because they have the complicit behavior of the media, including Fox News, they get away with it. And people don't question it because we don't teach civics anymore. And people just don't pay attention. And quite frankly, most Americans aren't, I mean, people are hurting now, but people aren't suffering like the 1930s in the Dust Bowl of Oklahoma, fleeing to California. We don't have that kind of suffering going on for most Americans. And quite frankly, you know, good decisions are a consequence of forming and developing in the crucible of adversity and suffering. And when people have good times all the time for a long period of time, and that's a relative term. I know people make mistakes, bad things happen, but by and large, most people in this country, the per capita income continues to rise, life expectancy continues to rise, the nifty toys we have at our disposal continue to rise, the drugs available to make life better continue to be developed, and generally speaking, you know, all things are going pretty well until Biden came along. But the point here is that people just they're not informed. They're not informed. It's shocking how uninformed people are about what's going on. You know, I had a conversation today on a new segment on my program, which is, we call it Iconic with Canthan and Chris. Is a South African gentleman who's a graduate of Princeton. He and I were talking, and I was talking about how, you know, it's shocking just how little people know. And he said, yeah, he said it's a global problem. And I've said that before, but people just are disengaged from politics because they don't understand it. They don't know, you know. So for instance, when the Democrats, and I get a chance to say this on that program, so I'll say it tonight, but when the Democrats and Kamala Harris claim that Donald Trump will ban abortion, what planet are they living on? The president doesn't have that authority, nor does the president have the authority to cancel student debt. That's also illegal. Yeah, right. But Donald Trump can't cancel. He can't ban abortions. He's not the legislature. He has no authority to do such thing. Executive orders do not apply to the country. This is something we have to fix. All these people running around and obeying executive orders that are illegal. The president of the United States can sign an executive order. It applies to the executive branch of the federal government and nobody else. Nobody else. If the president signs an order saying you have to have a clearance and wear a pink tutu, then you can't make people wear a pink tutu if they're in the judicial branch or the legislative branch. Only people in the executive branch. And you cannot make American citizens abide by an executive order. That is illegal. The president is not a legislator. He is an executive. He's supposed to oversee the bureaucracy and make the decisions in defense of this country and lead the country's bureaucracy. That's his role. That is his role, is not to make law. And that's what presidents have been doing since the income tax has been implemented in this country for over a century now. And the imperial presidency started under King Franklin Delano Roosevelt, continues to this day. And Trump is one of them too. He signed executive orders that should not have been signed, but not nearly as egregious as Obama and Joe Biden.
Well, some the one like saying take away, you know, two regulations to replace it with one, that I think it was well within his means to do so. But what people don't understand is that that's it. In 1947, it was Truman that signed in the Administrative Procedure Act.
Right. With Trump, but Trump can't do that because those are federal regulations. He can abrogate them. He can get rid of them. They weren't laws,
unless they're mandated by Congress.
Right, but federal regulations he can eliminate. He can sign something to wipe them out if they're applied to executive branch. And a lot of this has gotten convoluted because of the Chevron decision. And so you have executive agencies like the Environmental Protection Agency, in other words, that go out and they get people criminally prosecuted for violating their policies. They're not laws, they're policies, because Congress abrogated its responsibility and gave wide discretion to federal agencies, and the Chevron doctrine reinforced that. And this is why we have such a burdensome federal government, because of this. And now that's finally been rolled back, the Chevron doctrine. And in fact, we get Trump back in and we get these lunatics on the left out of office, we will see this country improve dramatically as a consequence of federal agencies no longer acting like imperial departments lording over citizens. This needs to end. And
well, they refer to it as the fourth branch of government. Was referred to that in a commission that I believe it was Roosevelt who was working for this at the time, had commissioned a group of people to research this, and they had found there wasn't any constitutional validity to create this sort of regulatory process. But then they fell upon the necessary and proper clause, where Congress has a right to delegate its authority. However, the problem is with the Chevron deference, they delegated the authority of the Supreme Court. Then they delegated the authority of the president with it, because he can sit there and like you just said earlier, he can change regulations. He can write executive orders for what he's looking for in regulations where Congress didn't exactly specify or mandate.
Right. And what you were saying there, I think the word we're looking for is usurp. Congress usurped authority from its co-equal branches in the judiciary and the executive branch, and they have no authority to do that. And that's why Chevron was such a bad decision, and now it's been overturned. It's ironic because Reagan was in favor of it, and he was wrong, and the demon rats want it, and they're wrong. It's just not right. That's not how our country was designed. That's not how it was set up. And this is a good news story when that went away. It was a great thing, and most Americans have no idea. They never heard of the Chevron doctrine, but it's good that it's gone. Thank goodness.
I'm glad to see it go. It's going to slow down the process a lot. I wonder if there's going to be a lot of court cases now where people are going to say, well, see, because it was under the interpretation of the regulatory agency, and then they're going to have to take it back to court to make a determination if that regulation can stand or not.
No, you're right. I mean, there may not be any recourse because that was the law of the land over a period of time. So you can't ask for compensation or this, that, and the other. But you can say that that's no longer legal. It doesn't stand now. And there's going to be a lot of those cases that'll strike down these regulations that are being opposed as laws. And that can't happen soon enough. I can't wait.
Well, we've seen the abuses with the EPA. We've all seen that. That made major media. Which one was it where they tried to regulate the trucking industry on greenhouse gases and higher standards and stuff, and they did it illegally.
But we're seeing abuses by other agencies that have come to light that most people are unaware of, that are becoming all too aware of. And the problem is that the court has not sided, unfortunately, with citizens in the Constitution. This is a mixed court. It isn't conservative court, that's for sure. And I'm talking specifically about the behavior of federal agencies in the Biden regime, in the Federal Bureau of Incompetence, and in the Department of Homeland Security, who have been using proxies to violate the Constitution and limit our free speech rights, violating our First Amendment rights. And of course, that's colluding, cajoling, and coercing tech media giants like Twitter and YouTube and Facebook to silence Americans because they didn't like what we had to say. And now you see it. I talked about the UK earlier, but the United Kingdom, let me find this. I've got this here. Let me find a sentence here. So the director of public prosecutions in the UK says his teams will consider seeking the extradition of social media influencers allegedly playing a role in the violent disorder gripping the UK from abroad. The key word there is allegedly. So they could say whatever they want. What they're saying, Stephen Parkinson, who is that director of public prosecutions, told the British Broadcasting Corporation that offenders must know that they are not safe and there is nowhere to hide. He added that anybody involved in the violence should know that they would face the most severe criminal charges, including terrorism. So if you are commenting on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter right now, and you live in Honduras, the British government claims that they are going to file for extradition to have you face criminal charges in their country for a crime that isn't a crime because you live in Honduras, you're a Honduran national, and you're publishing that on a Honduran server, not the British. These people have lost the plot, absolutely lost the plot, and they're serious. Instead of actually going after the people burning the cities of UK on the right and the lunatic fascist Islamo-Nazis running around with scimitars and swords, beating white people up on the streets, instead of doing that, they're focused on prosecuting. It's just like the distraction of January 6th. Instead of going after the politicians who imprisoned us during lockdown, who allowed an insurrection to take place, instead of arresting the insurrectionists from the summer of love in 2020, they went after January 6th and created a whole fraudulent narrative. That's what's happening in the UK. They're talking about prosecuting people who are outside the UK's sovereignty. Talk about cheeky. They don't have any sovereignty over anyone outside the United Kingdom. This isn't the British Empire. We left you clowns in 1776 with a good reason.
We beat their butts twice.
Yep.
What is it with this prime minister? They just newly elected a prime minister, correct?
Yeah, he's a leftist piece of human. Detrius. That's a good word.
I am hearing there's people, on social media and stuff that over there in UK, and they're talking about it may break out a civil war over there over what's going on right now.
Well, there is a civil war going on in the streets of the UK. I mean, I was talking to my co-host in the program today. He said it's happening in some places. No, it's happening all over the UK. There have been over 400 arrests so far, but they've only arrested white Britons. They haven't arrested any of the people who are doing it on the other side. And the media is also playing a role in this. They're hiding the fact that it's a conflict between these Islamo-fascists running around attacking people in the streets and others standing up and defending them. And yes, some of these people in the right wing have gone outside hostels, but that's also been misrepresented. So, for instance, one of the cities where it happened in the UK, these knife-wielding Islamo-fascists were out in the street, and a bigger crowd of right-wingers came up on the street, and they ran like little beaches to a hostel. They ran inside, And then the media lied, and they stood outside with cameras saying, white racist xenophobes are outside here chasing innocent Muslims and threatening them in a hostel. While inside, they're live streaming on social media, singing Allah Akbar and swinging their scimitars in the air with their face covering and mask on. We're not talking about women wearing the abaya or the burqa, but men hiding their faces because they know there's criminal charges. And these are rabble rousers and instigators. Those weren't innocent people in a hostel. So look, there are people on both sides breaking the law. The problem is that the government is playing one side, and this is going to lead to bloodshed. That's what's going to happen. We haven't had it yet, other than people being assaulted and beaten in the streets, but there are going to be fatalities coming unless this government gets its act together. This guy will not last long in this role. There'll be calls for his scalp very soon. He is a wackadoodle leftist lunatic who has had a role in government years ago when the left was in charge, and he was a disaster. The fact that he's prime minister now is bizarre. How do you have a guy in England named Keir Starmer? What is he, Norwegian?
I don't know.
When I say Yusuf Hamzes, from the famous Killarney clan of not Killarney, but of the famous Scottish Highlands clan of the Yusufs. I mean, people are like, oh, you're big, you're xenophobe, but they don't mention anything when I say, how about this guy Keir Starmer? Is he Norwegian? I'm saying the same thing about him.
Yeah, it's funny how they selectively hear things. I always find it confusing that the liberal left is always talking about, we got to put an end to this fentanyl crisis. We got to put an end to these opiate crises. But darn it, we need to keep them borders open. I'm like, is this contradictory or what? What's going on here?
You're not going to be able to end one if you don't end the other. I mean, it's just common sense. It's not rocket science here, but apparently they think it's rocket science. So in the next hour after the news, I really want to talk about Tim Walz. We'll talk about that. I mean, smarmy, cringy, creepy, weird Tim Walz.
Yeah, when they tried to label J.D. Vance as weird, and then they picked
and guess it was this guy. Did you see him cackling and laughing in Philadelphia last night? Oh my gosh. His mouth is large enough barn swallows could set up camp in there.
Oh, geez. No, I'm not overly familiar with Tim Walz. This is kind of a learning experience for me.
All right. Well, I've got I've got information for you on him the next hour and for the audience. Stick around, folks, and it won't just be, it won't be he's responsible for the Somali flag in Minnesota. No, we're not going to play that rumors. These are facts, indisputable facts about a drunk who lies and steals honor and steals valor, and who is all in love with destroying America. And that's what we're going to talk about in the next hour, John and I.
I did hear about that. Him running away. Kyle brought that up here in the first half hour. That'll be an interesting thing to hear about.
Yeah, no, it's and they try to deny this, and they try to spin it in every which way. It's amazing to me how someone who has so many flaws can be the guy they pick. Look, I posted last night on Twitter. I said, and I did a video too on YouTube, and I said Kamala Harris has picked Tim Walz to be her running mate for vice president, and then I put in all caps, "Thank you."
Yeah, that's what I told the wife, because she's like, they got to pick a better candidate than Kamala Harris. I'm like, I don't want a better candidate. No. Trump will walk all over her. Let her stay.
Usually the vice president has no impact on this, but this guy is going to be an anchor around Kamala Harris, unless her intent was the focus to be on him and they forget about her. But I mean, she's on the top of the ticket.
Everybody kept talking about Ben Shapiro out of your state, and I'm thinking to myself, she's not picking him because he'll grandstand on her. He'll look better than her, make her look bad.
Well, a lot of people do talk about Ben Shapiro up here, but our governor's Josh Shapiro.
I'm sorry, yeah, I said Ben. Sorry,
that's okay.
Josh Shapiro.
I'm just teasing. No, it's Josh Shapiro is if he had been picked, the race might have been over, because she foolishly didn't pick Shapiro, and she would have locked down Pennsylvania, because for whatever reason, people in the center and even some idiot Republicans vote for Josh Shapiro, and so that Casey would have won the senatorial seat, and then she would have won the presidency, and he would have been vice president. At least they would have won Pennsylvania for sure. Now she's got to fight for Pennsylvania, and she's picked a guy from a state that she's got. Minnesota's a shoo-in for the Democrats. I don't know what they're thinking here, but here's and I will talk about this more in the next hour. But here's a little idea that I've been proposing. She didn't make the pick. It was the deep money pocket people from Wall Street and the Obama puppets pulling the strings, because he's going to be the president while she just sits around and cackles in the front office. All right, we'll see you next hour.
I agree. All right, ladies and gentlemen, you got your setup for the next hour. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back in about 3 minutes or so.
WSMN 1590, WSMN 95.3 FM Nashua. Listen, watch, and stream at wsmn.live.
ABC News, I'm Daria Albinger. Taylor Swift's 3 concerts in Vienna are canceled after the arrest of 2 suspects accused of plotting a terror attack during one of the shows. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, the Democratic vice presidential nominee, told supporters in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, some students told him once to run for office.
I never thought that much about it, but they saw in me what I was hoping to instill in them. This idea of a commitment to a better world, a common good, a belief that one single person can actually make a difference.
Walz and Vice President Harris are now in Detroit. Tropical storm Debbie is gaining strength as it slowly makes way for another landfall in South Carolina early tomorrow. 1 person is dead, another injured after a military helicopter crashed at Fort Novosol Army Base in Alabama. Rafael Nadal's pulled out of the U.S. Open, 3rd Grand Slam so far this season, and it raises questions about the 38-year-old's future in tennis. This is ABC News. Turkey's filed a request with a UN court to join South Africa's lawsuit, which accuses Israel of genocide in Gaza. Startling details are coming out of a 2-day National Transportation Safety Board hearing on a door plug which blew off an Alaska Airlines jet.
In the ongoing NTSB hearing, new details are coming to light about production quality issues at Boeing. NTSB Chair Jennifer Hamady saying they've heard from Boeing workers about the plane fuselage pieces showing up at the factory.
One Boeing employee, not a contractor, said planes come in jacked up every day.
And in the hearing, new harrowing accounts of what it was like for the pilots on that Alaska Airlines plane, depressurized with their headsets ripped off, using hand signals to communicate, unaware if the back of the plane was even there anymore. Alex Stone, ABC News.
The Oakland, California Zoo vet team's taken in a mountain lion cub found walking in a residential area alone. They named him Briar, and says he'll stay with him till a home is found. Daria Albinger, ABC News.
Life hack number 7. Get an iPhone 12 on Straight Talk.
Life hack.
Here's how it works. You walk into Walmart, go to the electronics section, ask for iPhone 12 with 5G and a dual camera system, and select the new Silver Unlimited plan. They'll smile because it's a good plan. You get real unlimited data, all for just $20 a month for the whole first year. Get it at Walmart or StraightTalk.com. Straight Talk. Less dollars, more sense. Taxes and fees apply. Requires activation of iPhone 12 and a new Silver Unlimited plan or higher end auto pay enrollment. $25 a month service credit applied for up to 12 months if eligibility requirements are met. For network management practices, visit StraightTalk.com.
Everyone on the road is trying to make it to their destination safely. You can help by staying aware of the large trucks and buses around you. They take longer to stop, have large blind spots, and make wide turns that require caution from other drivers. It takes all of us working together to share the road safely. Learn more at www.sharetheroadsafely.gov. Paid for by FMCSA.
Explore more and spend less at Campers Inn RV. This month only, shop thousands of RVs under $29,999. But there's more. Browse hundreds of RVs priced at dealer cost exclusively for this event. But you must act fast. Once these deals are gone, they're gone for good. Experience Campers Inn difference and join thousands of satisfied customers. Unbelievable adventures and unbeatable prices begin at Campers Inn RV. Discount and finance offers subject to availability. Terms and conditions apply. With approved credit, see dealer for details.
Continuing the legacy started in 1904, Roger Pellerin of Gate City Monument Incorporated continues to provide the same high-quality monument, custom headstone, and stoneworking craftsmanship today that they built their reputation on over 100 years ago, servicing Nashua, New Hampshire, as well as nearby areas in Massachusetts, such as Lowell, Billerica, Chelmsford, and beyond. From creating custom monuments to memorialize, to landscaping and granite work, or restorative services. Each job is done to your satisfaction and is backed by decades of experience and integrity. If you're thinking about stonework, think Roger Pellerin of Gate City Monument. Visit online at gatecitymonument.com. Stop by and meet Roger at 321 West Hollis Street in Nashua, or call 603-883-7141. That's 603-883-7141. Gate City Monument, memorials of distinction for people who care.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, if you're just tuning in, you're listening to the Common Sense Conserves right here, WSMN 1590, WSMN 95.3 on your FM dial. Let me get Mr. Bad Billy Painter in here. He's going to join us for the next
Well,
hour.
while you're doing that, let me give an update here that was announced at the top of the hour. Ja, guten Abend, liebe Zuschauer, Zuhörer. Heute aus Wien. Wir haben tragödische Nachrichten. Ich muss euch Bescheid sagen, dass leider sind 3 Konzerten von der amerikanischen Sängerin Taylor Swift abgesagt am morgen Abend, Donnerstag und Freitag und Samstag. Leider können wir nicht mehr Taylor Swift sehen. Ich weiß, das ist eine große Tragödie für alle und ich muss leider Bescheid sagen, dass das wird nicht passieren. Wir sind informiert, wir sind Bescheid besagt von Polizisten, dass die haben Terroristen in Österreich gefunden und wir haben kein Konzert von Taylor Swift diese Wochenende in Wien.
Well, let me get that fine tuner here adjusted so we get back on the German into the English portion of our show.
I was going to ask if you had an applause button for that.
Yeah.
So,
I
just
think I
to
might have picked up
recap,
on one word night or something, I think you said.
Yeah,
But,
it's just to recap, police have arrested a terrorist with allegiance to the Islamic State. They're claiming he's an Austrian national. Yeah, I'm sure he's an Austrian national. I doubt he's Austrian. Probably something like these lunatics from Bosnia who came up there and their kids became radicalized because they're Muslims. But arrested a 19-year-old who's in league with a couple others. They had chemical stuff stored at this person's residence, and they were going to commit a terrorist act at one of the concerts in Vienna on Taylor Swift. She was performing Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Those concerts have been canceled, and they are now continuing their investigations. This is insane. And we saw the Ariana Grande concert in the UK, where all these people were killed by these lunatics. The security at these events really needs to be stepped up, particularly in Europe, where they're soft targets because Europeans are dumb and stupid and not very bright when it comes to terrorism. Yeah, I did say that. Europeans. Send me the hate mail. You can send it to JD Vance at Ohio Senate.
Don't send it there. Don't send it. I like JD Vance, actually. I've met the guy. And
If you are a childless cat lady, send it to JD.
Send it to JD. He loves hate mail too, I guess.
Well, obviously the French know better than to make fun of any Islamic state after what happened in 2015. So it's okay to take a jab at Christianity with that disgusting drag show.
That was pretty sad. Yeah, but it continues. Did you see the video of the female boxer jumping up and down, excited that she won, and her junk was bouncing inside the boxing shorts?
I'm not watching any of it. I'm not watching any of it.
You didn't have to watch the Olympics to see this. It's all over social media.
That stuff goes viral.
Yeah, that's not. You don't have to watch the Olympics. That was. That's a very well endowed lady there.
Okay, was that the one from Taiwan or the one from Algeria?
I think it's the one from Taiwan, based on the uniform. But I mean, it's a nice package bouncing up and down.
Oh my goodness!
My goodness.
I know the lady from Algeria. I've already discussed this a few times. Is Chris, you got to help me with this. Has the same defects as what's her name from South Africa, Castro
Samaya. Yeah, it's not genitalia. It's a XY chromosome issue, and it's called DSD, and so that's why the person was disqualified by the International Boxing Association, which unfortunately has had a history of corruption, and so it's been tainted. But the organization's reformed, and there's new people running it, and they're trying to bring it back from the brink. But they carry the stink of what happened before, and they banned those 2 boxers and stripped them medals last year when they failed gender tests. And the National Olympic Committee stripped them of any involvement after Tokyo being involved with the Olympics. So anyway, the one from Algeria clearly has genetic capabilities that should not allow a person to be in the ring with genetic females. And that's not a slight on the boxer from Algeria. It's just not fair.
It's just
and neither one of these are transgender athletes. That we should make that clear too, because that's
Yeah.
being thrown about.
Yeah, that was thrown around way too much by the mainstream media
And they tried to attribute it to the right, which was nonsense.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. You know, and I got to admit, I jumped on that bandwagon, but I'm still in agreement that they have an unfair advantage and should not be allowed to compete. And that's
Correct.
It's
Correct.
just part. I hear, who are you to judge? Blah, blah, blah. This is part of life. I mean, come on. You have kids with Down syndrome that want to do certain things.
You shouldn't be putting a child with Down syndrome in the ring because the child's a female and she wants to box. She'll get pummeled.
Yeah, exactly.
No, what this comes down to, and this is an important distinction we got to talk about right now. We have been conditioned in America throughout our childhoods and into our adulthood to think discrimination is bad. Discrimination is not bad. Misusing discrimination is what's wrong. If you discriminate against somebody based on their skin color, their race, their ethnicity, their sex, their gender, their sexual orientation, their language, their ethnic origin, that is wrong discrimination. However, we don't let people who are deaf enter the military. We don't let people with no legs come to the military. You can't perform your duties. Therefore, you have discriminatory means. We don't let people who are convicted of multiple drug offenses enter the Army, because we can't have people who are untrustworthy there. So there is a purpose and role for discrimination. It's not an evil word. It is not an evil action. However, if it's misused, like anything in society, that's when it becomes a problem. But we have been conditioned. Tell me that you didn't grow up, John, and hear the word discrimination was the bad thing.
We've aligned it with prejudice. Is the meaning we changed the meaning to meaning prejudice instead of using it for its actual meaning in terms.
Yeah, well, it's like the conflation between racism, which is actually bigotry. Most of what people whine about being racism isn't even racism. It's simply bigotry. Now, both of them are not good, but there's a clear distinction between being a racist and being a bigot. Archie Bunker was a bigot. He was the most famous bigot ever. He hated Jews, he hated Muslims, he hated blacks, he hated Poles. He was an equal opportunity hater. He hated Catholics because he was a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant. And that was the magic of what Norman Lear was doing there, which as a kid I didn't get, but I figured it out later on. He was showing just what it was like to be a bigot and how silly Archie was. But if you remember that show, he didn't dislike George Jefferson because he was black. He just didn't like him. I mean, because he thought he was better than George Jefferson. That would be a racist. If you think you're better than a different group of people, that makes you a racist. But he just liked him because he was black. And if you remember the episode where Archie was in the hospital and he got a blood transfusion from a black guy.
Yeah.
And though the character after that slowly evolved and his bigotry disappeared in many respects. It never went away completely. You can't change, you can't try to teach an old dog new tricks. But the point is that people conflate bigotry and racism. And the difference is that lots of people are bigots. They have objections to this, that, and the other. And bigotry can be born out of ignorance, and it can also be based on actual legitimate reasons, and just that's your position doesn't make it just. But racism is in someone's heart. Those people believe that one group of people is better than another people. They have not read the Declaration of Independence, that all men are created equal, that they're endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights. The chief among these are life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. It doesn't matter if you're from Pakistan or you're from Parma, Italy, or if you're from Peoria, Iowa. All men are created equal. How we apply ourselves is what matters, and that's how we distinct with the distinction. But racists don't care about distinctions and accomplishment. They just attack people based on their appearance, based on their origin, based on things like that, and that's wrong. If you give someone advantage or disadvantage based on that. But, everybody's welcome to be a bigot. If you don't like Irish Americans, I don't give a crap. Now, if you prevent me from getting a job because I'm an Irish American, then we got a problem.
Yes.
I've said that before. Don't let me walk into a restaurant. You hate me because I'm white. Go ahead and tell me up front because I can choose a different restaurant.
Exactly.
Yeah, don't spit in your food. And by the way, I thought it was God created all men, but Sam Colt made them equal.
Well, I thought it was Smith & Wesson, but yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Actually, so I like in addition to my friends, Smith & Wesson.
I remember that.
I got something to read to you guys, too, that I see here. Olympic Committee announces $2 billion lost in revenue. The games may never recover.
Well, I mean, Olympics have lost over $1 billion before. It happens because companies take a risk. I mean, much of that money comes from advertising, and the gravy train of NBC doesn't want that to end, and neither does Sky Sports, and neither does all the Super Sport and all these other networks around the world. But listen, I mean, it's no surprise this Olympics is losing money. I mean, it's who wants to swim in poo water? It's disgusting.
Well, there's that.
And that, I mean, well, the old phrase, go woke, go broke.
Yeah.
And, I mean, take that opening ceremony. I mean, I'm hearing, it was Greek mythology or whatever. It's fine. So maybe it wasn't a depiction of the Last Supper, which I think it was, regardless.
They were mocking the Last
But
Supper.
Billy, one of the actors, the massively obese female, I think she's female actor, had tweeted before the ceremony that they were doing a mocking of the Last Supper.
Well,
they knew what they were doing. They lied about after the fact.
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't just that though that got me. It was still a drag show with children present. Which I do not, I do not approve of. Regardless, whatever they want to twist it, they can't hide the fact that it was a drag show in front of children.
But when it comes back to the loss of the Olympics, you're right about that. But I mean, people have paid a fortune. They've planned on going. They bought tickets 2 and 3 years ago when they finally became available. They've rearranged their schedules. The people that were going to go to the Olympics are overwhelmingly still going to the Olympics, even if they're unhappy with it, because they've put so much into it. So the financial losses are less from that, and probably we can attribute some financial losses to a lack of merchandise sales as a consequence of how it unfolds, because a lot of the merchandise sales, which are quite lucrative, occur during the Olympics when events like, last night when the U.S. won the women's 200 meter. Someone's walking behind you. But last night when American won the 200 meter women's race in epic fashion, that's likely to drive. And we saw Noah Lyles with the most exciting men's 100 meter. And we're talking about a race that's had Usain Bolt in it. We all got excited. I was in London in 2012 when Usain Bolt ran, and I was coming from the Olympic Stadium over in the East where I'd been at a game, coming all the way back and running through the tube, trying to get up to Hyde Park. I got there, went through security, walked in like a minute before that race started when Usain Bolt won that in London. But, this race was unbelievable, but that is what drives merchandise sales. And merchandise is a huge pile of coin for the Olympics. So maybe that's something that's going to lead to a loss. But the television revenue is already fixed. That's already there. The revenue from hotels and the money from licensing, that's already there. So I don't know that we can attribute that to the wokeness of this Olympics. But the Olympics have been woke for a long time. This is hardly new. It's just becoming much more egregious, I think is the point.
Yeah.
Well, also they've had a few sponsors pull, like Samsung used to put a lot of money.
Samsung didn't pull out. That the people are getting punked. They did not pull out of advertising for the Olympics. That was a parody site that ran that, and unfortunately, a few people shared that, and a couple of reputable people shared it, and so people believed it. There has been a U.S. cellular provider. I think they're the 5th largest cellular provider in America. They pulled out of advertising, but I haven't seen any other major advertisers pull out yet.
Sometimes I don't enjoy those satire sites because of that very reason.
Right. And you got to be very careful about that. But here's the thing about that too, is that the advertiser can pull out. That doesn't diminish revenue to the Olympics unless they were getting sponsorship money. And that company wasn't sponsoring the Olympics. They were just paying for ads during the Olympics on NBC. So NBC suffers. But not the Olympics. So yeah, it's a lot. It's very complicated, the revenue stream to these international games, whether it's the Olympics or the World Cup or the Rugby World Cup. So many different things come into play here. But yeah, there's no doubt about it that the Olympics have really torqued off a lot of people, Billy. And I think everybody in this room is included in that audience.
I think who else torqued off a lot of people?
Who?
Kamala Harris picking Tim Walz. We made a promise to talk about this.
The only people that she's pissed off are progressives. Or not progressive.
Yeah.
BLM's
all upset because they didn't get to vote for her. They didn't get a choice.
But again, like I said in the last hour to Kyle, I said, the progressives must be very mad because she picked an old white dude.
Well, that's the truth too, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, also all this hubbub that started just because she's quote unquote black. But before, I remember her being of Southern Asian Indian descent.
Well, even if she wasn't of Asian descent, she's not black. And even if she was black, she's not African because her parents aren't black. Her father isn't black. Her mother isn't black. He's Jamaican of white
Jamaicans are
ancestry.
like 90% black.
90%, not all of them. You got the slave owners that still that got descendants there.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, but they're that's where the black comes from, was Africa, right? And Jamaica.
Correct.
Her father wasn't black of skin.
Her father's mixed race with more European ancestry than African.
Okay.
Just a couple got in there at some point, little mixing going on. She is a descendant of the largest slaveholder in Jamaican history.
Great.
So she's not black. And even if she were black, she's not African American. She is not the American experience. She didn't grow up a black in America. She wasn't black. She's of Jamaican and South Asian descent to begin with. So that's fraudulent. Next, she didn't grow up in African American. I grew up more African American than she did in housing projects in Maryland and living in Baltimore. More African American than she ever was. And she spent her formative years from the age of 12 to 22. Where? In Canada.
So Archie Bunker's more African American than he is because he got a blood transfusion.
Probably. Probably. No,
So
I mean, look,
I kind of was thinking, Chris, that do you think she picked him, Walt, because of his location in the country, because there's so much Muslim influence in Minnesota?
No.
Because you notice she kind of like didn't totally shunned Netanyahu, totally just walked off, said, "I got a campaign."
It's because
she didn't even shake the man's hand.
Yeah, she's an anti-Semite. She's a Jew hater. I mean, it's pretty obvious.
She's married to a Jewish guy.
I don't care. I mean, you got white guys married to black women. Doesn't mean they're not racist. It just means they enjoy the company of the person they're sleeping with, right? Just you don't get a free pass.
It's a possibility.
You don't get a free pass just because you go to synagogue. You can still be a Jew hater. There are Jew haters who go to synagogue every week. You know, it's her actions are what I'm talking about. She's shown she's an anti-Semite. Listen, it's the reason. Again, I'm going to go back to the thesis that I proposed the moment that he was announced. She's not making the choice. Just like Joe Biden didn't pick her. I mean, we know that Joe Biden is not there. You know, his brain's on a vacation far away. You know, he's losing his mind. But Joe Biden would never have picked Kamala Harris to be his presidential running mate after she called him over and over again during a nationally televised debate a racist. You want to talk about breaking political decorum? She didn't say, your actions. No, she said you're a racist. That's what she said.
That's probably the only true statement she ever made.
True, but that's not the point. The point is that who would pick somebody to be the running mate? She was not picked by Joe Biden. She was forced on Joe Biden by his puppet masters who told him who to pick because they wanted to control the White House and policy, and they've done it effectively. And now that Joe has gotten them as far as he could, Kamala's not going to get them there. So they brought in the really dyed-the-wool, far to the left lunatic who they can control, who will do what they tell him to do. And that's Tim Walz. And he'll be running the White House from the vice presidential suite. That's what'll happen. That's what's going to happen. So I don't think that she wants him. Now she might like him, and she was probably talked into it because he's a fellow traveler. He's the guy that allowed Minneapolis to burn and go up in flames and nothing being done, not calling out the National Guard to put a stop to that as the city burned and was looted and people were murdered. That was him. And he's the guy who begged Trump for security help when the people went stand around his house complaining about the lockdown. This is a guy who she was in league with trying to raise bail money for violent criminal offenders who assaulted, looted, murdered, attacked people and bailing these criminals out. So they do share some worldview in common, but I don't think she picked him. Look, the smarter pick, as I said earlier, thank God she didn't do it, was Josh Shapiro.
Yeah.
Look, America, let's be honest here, folks. You want to admit it or not, America's not ready to elect a Jewish president. And Josh Shapiro is not going to be president this term. I mean, that's why he didn't run. But on the vice presidential ticket, nobody cares. So him being Jewish wouldn't have been that big an issue. Wouldn't have been a detractor in this election for her. But securing the vote in Pennsylvania, where contrary to popular wisdom, apparently he's popular, would have locked down Pennsylvania, one of the most important battleground states in the country. And that's going to be 17 electoral college votes that she's now lost. Trump will win Pennsylvania.
That puts him first in line for the continued continuity of government.
Yeah, but they don't care. They don't care because he's not going to be running it. It will be the Wall Street Titans and Obama and Susan Rice in the background. That's who's running this stuff. Do you guys really think that that Biden has been running this country? The guy doesn't know what day it is. He can't walk up a flight of stairs, and it didn't happen yesterday. It's been going on since he entered office. There's a reason he was in his basement throughout the 2020 campaign, and it wasn't COVID. COVID was the biggest gift in history to the Democratic Party. They lied about Trump, and they stole events. They lied about the history. They create a false narrative. And then the behavior of people stupid enough to behave the way they did walking in that building that day gave them another coup. And they've got their insurrection, and they've got their Donald Trump's response for COVID lies, and all of that fell in their lap. But even with all those gifts, they still couldn't run this country, and they ran us into the ground because their ideas are antithetical to freedom. That's the bottom line.
Yeah. I remember that so well. I won't take that shot. No way. That's Donald Trump's COVID shot. I'm not taking that shot. And as soon as it was in their hands, it's like, you must take the shot today.
I made a montage. I did all the screen captures of the tweets and social media posts of all the Hollywood actors, all the politicians like Chucky Schumer and Nancy Pelosi and all these lunatics saying, don't do it. Donald Trump is making money off of this jab. Donald Trump. Donald Trump. It's not, it doesn't work. And then the moment they're in the White House, if you don't take it, you're killing Granny. You're a criminal. You hate your neighbors. We're going to hunt you down. Oh, by the way, you're kicked out of the military. Never mind the fact you've done 16 combat tours and you've rescued American hostages and you defended this nation with honor and you've never stolen a cent and you're an honorable person. You're a dirtbag because you won't take this unproven jab that was produced in 7 months. Yeah. And they're still telling the lies. I'm reading a book from South Africa. This lunatic says Donald Trump told people to inject bleach. He never told people that, you lying sack of manure.
Hydrochloroquine.
It wasn't.
He never told them that either.
It was something else. I thought it was hydroxychloroquine, but it's not. But it's something else. I know exactly what it is because I've taken this stuff. And believe me, once I had a cold symptoms going on, I took a drink of that stuff, which is what you're given 2 bottles. You put 1 little drop into like almost a shot glass, and then you follow with the other bottle with another small drop, and you let them mix together, and they kind of form a brownish, ugly color. And then of course, you mix it with water and you drink it, and it actually works really, really well.
Yeah, I've had that. It's called a Tom Collins.
It smells like bleach, so that's why they say that.
Well, I'm not here to discuss or defend that. My point was that Donald Trump never told people to inject themselves with bleach. Right. That's a lie. It's a wives' tale, and it's still running around. People still believe it, and it's published in books, published in South Africa. I'm reading a book tonight, and I'm like, I'm gonna cascade this guy. I'm gonna do a book review online and just destroy his book because of his lies. And that's just one of the many lies. But all right, I did promise that we're going to talk about little Timmy Waltz. Should we get to that now, John?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
All right. So little Timmy Waltz, let's talk about this guy. This is a guy who signed a piece of legislation that allows for abortions up to birth, late-term abortions. That sounds like a really centrist guy, doesn't it, Billy?
Yeah. Well, then again, I was listening to Bob France out of Cleveland the last 2 mornings talking about him. And what Bob France will say is they obviously had to pick a pair that were two of the biggest leftist, most communist people in the country. How true that is, I don't know, but I figured him coming out of Minnesota, which has been a left-wing hellhole for years, and, people like him have destroyed it.
Yep. Well, okay. So there's the first one. That's not exactly centrist. Left-wing abortions. Now, one thing I'm going to cover here, because in the interest of the truth, I always seek the truth, is that he's being targeted right now for replacing the Minnesota state flag with an homage to Somalia. Now, I covered that story, but he's not the architect behind it. He's not the person that pushed it. This was a commission that was put together. Because let's face it, Minnesota's old flag was pretty lame and hideous, like many Midwestern flags are not impressive. The new one is colorful and interesting, and it does have a resemblance to a Somali flag, but they have an argument for why it's like that. So he's not responsible for that. So in the interest of fairness, we'll disclose that. But he did joyfully sign a piece of legislation authorizing driver's license for criminal alien invaders, much like the state of Maryland. These are states that have betrayed the nation. These are states that must be sued. However, we can sue states. We can take states to the Supreme Court. McCulloch versus Maryland is a good example of that. We should sue them for undermining the safety and sanctity of the United States citizens for giving driver's license to criminal alien invaders who have no business being in the country and they're driving around. He signed that gleefully. I've seen the footage when he signed it. He's all excited. Driver's license for all. No, driver's license for legal people in the country. Next, he lied about his reason for quitting the Minnesota National Guard after serving for 24 years. He was promoted to Command Sergeant Major, and then when his unit got an announcement for deployment to Iraq, he quit and ran away. And his campaign in 2006 tried to make the claim that the reason he quit the National Guard was because he couldn't run for political office and be in the National Guard. That's a bold-faced lie. It's simply factually untrue. You have to look no further than Brigadier General Scott Perry, former leader of the Freedom Caucus and representative from my district in Pennsylvania, who is serving in Congress. He's a retired one-star general. When he was in office as a congressman, he was in as a major lieutenant colonel, and he stayed throughout that time. You, as a guardsman and reservist, can serve in political office. However, as an active duty member of the military, you cannot serve in political office. So he's a liar. Stolen honor, stolen valor. He abandoned his unit because he was a coward and didn't believe in Afghanistan. So he suckled off the teat and claims honorable service for 24 years when he wasn't forced to deploy. And then when he's forced to deploy and actually do his job, he ran like a little biatch.
Just a sidebar to that. His assessors online talks about that very thing and says that lacks leadership. You know, he says, what are you going to do? Because I was told I need to step up in this place. Now, he ran away like a coward. He was fearful for his life. Yep. Now they're asking me to step in his place. He says, well, that's what leaders do. We step up and we lead. And he said he's been all over social media and stuff trying to expose Tim Walz for this, but the media won't cover it.
No, they won't. And Google already started scrubbing search results for the next thing I'm going to talk about as soon as he was announced. But people had the information. They shared it on social media. So Google is unsuccessful. Plus, DuckDuckGo, an alternative search engine, still turns results for this. So driving under the influence. He's a drunk. And he failed a field sobriety and a breath test in Nebraska administered by a state trooper on September 25th, 1995, when he was serving in the Minnesota National Guard. The officer said he had a strong odor of alcoholic beverage and was detected from his breath and his person. So in other words, it was all over his body, not just side. He's a fall-down drunk, apparently. According to a court transcript, his blood alcohol content was 0.128. Woo-hoo! That dude was pickled.
Wow.
Anyway, yeah, that's high. Now, his office insisted that he had hearing issues from his time in the National Guard, and he was deaf, and that resulted in miscommunication. He had balance issues, and that's why he failed the sobriety test. So apparently the 1.28 level of blood alcohol isn't the reason he failed a field sobriety. Now, here's the problem with that lie, and this is why a person steals valor. Here's the problem. If you're deaf, you're not in the military. That's as simple as the truth. You cannot serve in uniform if you're deaf. You can't do it. So if he had hearing loss, he would have been discharged from the Minnesota National Guard. Yet that was 1995 when he was arrested for driving under the influence. He stayed in the Minnesota National Guard for another decade. So how is it he was deaf in 1995, but still there 10 years later? This is the biggest liar and stolen valor clown that we've seen in years. What is that? I keep hearing something.
Somebody's got air horns and on the street. They seem to want to exercise them.
That was a screen at first, but yeah, go on.
Yeah, so his campaign in 2006 that said that Walz couldn't understand what the officer was saying to him. Well, why is he driving then? And oh, by the way, did I mention he was going 96 miles an hour in a 55 zone? So it wasn't like he was pulled over going 65 in a 55, 96 miles an hour, drunk as a skunk. And then he lies in court saying that, well, I have hearing issues. I'm deaf. I couldn't understand the guy. What a crock. This guy is a piece of human detritus. Unbelievable. This is unbelievable. So it's just, I don't know what to say. So it appears that due to the officer's failure to recognize Walz's deafness, which is non-existent, the blood test results were suppressed during the proceedings going to trial, and they were unable to use as evidence. And so they offered him a plea bargain. Now, is this a case of white liberal political privilege? Yes, it is. Ladies and gentlemen, Walz is perhaps possibly the worst vice presidential pick in a century. You can try to put lipstick on a pig, but you'll need a lot of Maybelline to cover up this hideous loser and his running mates' guffaws, cackles, failures, and the betrayal of America, our ideals, and our citizens. Yeah, lipstick on a pig, but it'll take a lot of Maybelline to take care of this clown.
And you know what's kind of funny too, Chris, is there are a few leftists out there on social media that are trying to they've got Tim Lutz or Lulz or whoever. They've got him right next to JD Vance, and they're talking about how this man from Minnesota has a much more impressive military record.
Than what? A doorknob?
Oh no, he sounds. Oh no, by the way you're describing, he sounds like the man who was peeling potatoes.
Well, look, I'm not trying to throw shade on his service. What I'm trying to throw shade on is his lies. The man lied. He quit the National Guard not because he was running for office. I don't know if he quit because he was tired of being in the Guard. He was too lazy to go on deployment. He was a coward. I don't know why he quit, and I'm not going to make the claim why he quit. But I am going to expose him for being a fraud, claiming that the reason he quit is because he was running for political. It's a lie. It's a total lie. It's simply not true. And people who know anything about the military know he's a liar, and it's not going to stand.
But by quitting, you didn't fulfill his contract, his agreement.
Well, he was enlisted, and I don't know how he's able to simply leave the military like that. I mean, I don't know the rule because I wasn't in the Guard for 20 years. I don't know the rule after 20 years, but an enlistment is enlistment. You have to serve your term. You don't just look as a commissioned officer. Once I fulfill my obligation, which in my case was 3 years, and my reserve obligation was at the time 4 years. It wasn't 6 years, but once I reserved that obligation or finished that obligation, I could resign, submit my letter of resignation at any time. Now, if I resign, I'll never get a retirement check because you can't just leave the military. If I have 20 years in and I send a submission of resignation, I don't get a retirement check. However, if I ask to resign, if I'm granted permission to resign or not resign, if I ask to retire, then I'm granted permission to retire. I get a retirement check, but I'm on the retirement list, which means I'm subject to recall. Resigning means your commission's gone. You won't serve in the military ever again. You're not in the military. I'm still in the Army. I may not be active duty, but I'm on the retired list. I can be recalled at any time. And in fact, I was asked to come back to the War College late last year on active duty, and I turned it down because it was a voluntary thing. Anyway, so the point here is that this guy's just a bold-faced liar. I mean, it's stolen valor. I'm not going to try to denigrate what he did in the 24 years he served because I don't know what he did. But what I do know is he lied about leaving the Guard. And if he's going to lie about something like that, I don't trust the guy. And it's stolen valor. Today, and my audience was asking me about, my decorations. I don't show them very often, but it's still hanging here from this afternoon. Hang on. So this is my shirt, and I wear this for events with the VFW. I mean, there's a lot of salad on that uniform. Look at that.
Yeah,
that's a lot. There's about 35 decorations on there.
And if you wanted to go with the medals that you have, I mean, I'm sure that's another story and sight to see.
Right, and none of that's stolen valor. Those are all legitimate, and I don't run around and I just showed it to you guys because we're talking about the topic, and I was asked about it today. But this guy, it's stolen valor. He's lying. I mean, and it's just like Swift Boat Carey, and then he claims he's a victim. They lied about him. No one lied about him. The dude spent like 5 minutes in Vietnam and then came back and threw his medals because he's an evil political slime ball, and that's how he built his entire career. And then he became so uber wealthy because he married Teresa Heinz Carey, whose husband, John Heinz, died. And so she got the Heinz fortune, and then they sold us down the road to Brazil. It's not even an American company anymore. Heinz is owned by Brazil. Unbelievable. These people betraying America.
Hey, Colonel, I don't know if you caught this, just briefly changing the subject, but there is a video going around social media that has gotten kind of viral with it's on a public transit bus. This guy is in full military uniform and pretending to be a soldier, and the bus driver had been watching him and called him out on his Bravo Sierra and kicked him on off the bus because the bus driver himself was retired military and just basically called him out for the stolen valor and the Bravo Sierra and had him take off the uniform right there on the bus, kicked him off the bus, and left him behind.
Well, I'm not at all surprised. Here's the thing. So it is a federal crime, stolen valor. You can't do that sort of thing, misrepresent, wear the uniform. And that's why, even as a retired military person, I'd be very circumspect. I'm authorized as a retiree to wear that stuff at events. That's why that's set up like that. So I do that on Veterans Day and things like that. But, these things are particularly egregious. I mean, I remember seeing one of these things where this black woman goes into a recruiting center and she comes in and she's got like a, how do I say this without using profanity? A jacked up uniform version with rank on the collar like a full colonel and wearing flip-flops in uniform. And she comes and she says, I came in to get my check. And recruiters are looking at her like, your check? Yeah, no, I've been deployed to Texas. I'm going there now. Going to the base, and I need some travel money, and so I came to collect my check. And the recruiters are trying their hardest not to laugh at her. Obviously, she's not in the military and she has no idea. I saw another one with this young black guy. I'm not picking on black folks, but these videos, the ones that get circulated, a black guy who clearly looked like he hadn't shaved in about 2 or 3 months. And he's wearing a hat and it's askew on his head. And he's got one rank from enlisted and he's got one rank on one of his collars for an officer. The other one's bare. And he stuck a couple medals on the wrong order up here. And he's talking about, how he was serving in combat in all these places. And he's out there at this public event. And people are like, what are you talking about? You're not in the military. You weren't even old enough to be in the Gulf War. You're like 19.
Well, that same video that I was talking about too, I guess that guy told the bus driver that he was on deployment in the United States.
Well, we do have deployments within the U.S., but that's not usually what people say. That is the proper term for it, but usually by deployment, it's implied that you went overseas to a combat zone. But people like Tim Waltz stretch that for stolen valor and say they were deployed. And so he went to Italy in support of the Operation Afghanistan. That is a deployment technically, but if you allow people to believe that you were in Afghanistan when you weren't because you were supporting the Afghanistan campaign, like I was awarded the Kosovo Campaign Medal. I never stepped foot in Kosovo. I never claimed I did. I never implied, never gave my thought. I was involved in the campaign with Task Force Hawk in Italy. That was part of the combat zone, according to the Department of Defense and Congress, not me. So I'll never mislead people about that. But anyway, but other people do. They let people believe what they want to. I know a certain person is serving as ambassador who likes to let people believe that he was much more impressive in one of the services than he was, and is never honest about what really happened in his career and lets people believe what they want. But hey, if people need to do that to feel good about themselves, that's on them. People should be honest about who they are.
Now, Colonel, let me ask you this, because I just saw this just now on social media here. It says, mom's terrified by anti-parent VP Tim Walz. Or VP Pick, excuse me.
Well, I'm not surprised because this man believes wholeheartedly in the false narrative, which is undermining the gay community in this country with this LGBTQ plus agenda that's going on, the transgender things. He's all into that. He's also all into allowing criminal alien invaders to plop their kids in our schools, which causes all kinds of problems in schools. And yeah, no, I'm not surprised that he's anti-parent. I'm not sure what that story is going on about, but I would feel the same way just based on that information.
Well, let me read what I got here. It says, Erin Lee, a Colorado mom of 3 whose daughter's art teacher attempted to help her transition behind her parents' backs, said she has serious concerns about Walz's track record on gender ideology. As a parent who had the state intervene in my family, I know the pain that it causes families when these laws impact their lives. Lee told the Daily Signal, it's very real. Excuse my third grade level reading there, but I think
it sounds like this is concerned about transgender issues again. Yeah, so this guy is a radical.
Rights issues.
Yeah, there's definitely parental rights issues here, but it's look. I mean, thank you, Kamala Harris. You could have picked the worst selection. I love it. I think Trump is in the same boat. Today he came out and said, he's excited that Tim Waltz got picked. So am I. The only worst pick, I think, but a more threatening pick would have been Gavin Newsom. He's a worse selection, but he's charismatic. No, but he's charismatic, and people in California, they would have got votes. But Tim Waltz is just some dumpy-looking, chubby old white guy, and so I don't know what he brings to the ticket.
Yeah, he doesn't have the charisma. Thank God he doesn't have the charisma that Gavin Newsom has. Gavin Newsom scares me. Okay, I mean when he came to Idaho and then he went to Florida and he's going to Texas, he's going to all these places that Californians are moving to just to get away from him. All that tells me is that he's taunting them, saying you're not getting away from me that easily.
Nah, he just misses them.
He's the Antichrist. It's Hotel California. You can check out, but you can never leave.
Nah, he just misses them, Bailey. You're just being overly sensitive, man. Come on. We had this conversation in the last hour with Kyle. Oh my goodness.
Did you guys happen to notice that these reports anymore? Like say that issue there on the runway with I don't know why they're on the same airport on the same tarmac, but there's Vance and Kamala Harris on the same tarmac.
Yeah.
And they're talking about Vance in the articles and stuff where he's approaching Kamala, but she managed to evade him, is how they write it up. Like they don't know if she hid out in the plane or if she managed to evade him on the tarmac, but she managed to. I'm like, so you're making her sound weak and spineless and cowardly.
No, but I mean, what actually happened is that both planes taxied up at almost the same moment. She took her time getting off the plane. JD Vance didn't miss a beat. He saw them standing not in front of his plane, but in front of her plane. So he walked over and goes, "Hey, look, if she won't come answer your questions, I'll be happy to answer your questions." It's brilliant. I mean, that's excellent. I mean, if that's the kind of quick-witted sort of behavior you're going to get at JD Vance, it could be a very entertaining election cycle, because I mean that was just absolute purely brilliant what he did there, and the press is trying to spin it. They're trying to spin everything. Yeah. I mean, listen.
Well, they're trying to make him sound like a bully, right? But at the same time,
he wasn't a bully. He was.
I know he was. I'm not saying he was. I said that's what they're attempting.
I know, but I mean, I'm confirming that he wasn't behaving as a bully. He was just being cheeky, and that's funny. It was hilarious. I mean, if you're an objective person, it was hilarious. If she'd done it to him, it would have been funny too. Except that he doesn't shy from the camera. In 17 days, she hasn't talked to anybody. It's just utter nonsense. By the way, I will say this. I will give Kamala Harris all the credit she's due. Like a French poodle, she is trainable.
By the way, don't you just find it ironic when you see somebody with pink hair and all kinds of piercings, and they claim to be gender fluid and their pronouns are they or them, and they say JD Vance is weird.
Oh, well, look, the guy that coined that was none other than himself, the Mr. Little Timmy. It's just like we're gonna get Lassie out here. Come on, Timmy. Come on, Lassie. Is it okay? Is it safe? Little Timmy Waltz. That's that. There you go. That nickname's gonna stick. Little Timmy Waltz. Yeah. Come on, Lassie. Come on. Now, Little Timmy Waltz is the one that called JD Vance weird. Now, last night in Philadelphia, this guy opened his mouth up large enough you could put aircraft in there in a hangar. I mean, I saw barn swallows setting up a nest in his mouth last night. It's so large. He is weird. I mean, this is the note. What did I write earlier? This was for the program. I wrote a few notes for the program tonight. Where's it at? Here it is. And I said that, no, that's the wrong one. Shoot, what happened? Did I close that thing up?
He did something I would do.
No, I said he was
Windows.
Really
too many
quick.
windows, but he's smart. I said he's smarmy, and that's exactly what he is. And he's weird. He is weird. Isn't it funny how the left always projects onto others? He's calling JD Vance weird, and you want to tell about the definition of weird. This guy is weird.
Well, it sounds like he can rival either Mick Jagger or Steven Tyler from Aerosmith, by the way you're talking, but
yeah, no doubt about it. They might have a gig going there, but I mean, honestly, this mouth is like 5 inches. I mean, how do you do that unless you unhinge your jaw like those creatures on V who used to eat rats? Remember that?
I never watched V, but yeah. I don't know.
You talking about the 1980 series?
Yes,
yeah,
the miniseries V. I remember that she when you found out she was a lizard person from another world, but they look like humans, she leans up, she opens her mouth, and she swallows a rat. And that's what little Timmy Waltz last night reminded me of. When he's not calling for Lassie, he must be eating rats, like the visitors.
Oh no! Then again, maybe he's an alien, and our race is weird to his race. I don't know.
I don't know. Look, the Men in Black told me that Elvis was an alien, so who knows? Here come the Men in Black.
Yeah,
there's Elvis and Bigfoot flying around in UFOs, just popping up in places.
Listen, I don't want you guys. I don't want you guys to remember what I just said. Okay, look very carefully at this.
Yeah, right. The memory erasing light.
But nonetheless, though, I mean, whereas Tim Walz doesn't seem very smart, if you ask me. I don't know. Maybe Biden's got somewhat of a higher IQ, but that's hard. That's a really tough one to beat right there.
But that's why I'm saying they could have Shapiro. She needed somebody that was actually dumber than her, so she can actually look good.
Yeah. But he's bad news. This guy, his track record says communist all over it. That's not good.
So
Well,
does
Bill, you
hers.
know what's comical about this is that the leftist media, the legacy media, are out there talking about how this was a bright move for her because Shapiro was a risk. Shapiro believes in school vouchers. That's something conservatives believe in. So that was a risk for her. What do you mean it was a risk? That's who you have to get. You have the 35% that are leftist lunatic Democrats are going to vote for any doorknob they put in front of you, and you have the 35% lunatic Republicans are going to vote for any doorknob you put in front of you. That leaves 30% of the electorate. The normal Republicans, the very few normal Democrats, and independents. That's who you have to get. Those are people who believe in school vouchers and responsible government. So why would you skip Josh? Look, I didn't want her to take Josh Shapiro. Why would you skip Josh Shapiro? Why would that be a risk? That would have been a brilliant move for her. But instead, she picks the guy who's further left than Bernie Sanders. Can you believe that? I mean, Bernie Sanders celebrated his honeymoon in Moscow, not last week, during the Soviet Union. How did he get a visa to go there? What a commie.
Oh, no. Then again, Bernie Sanders praised Fidel Castro and whoever the president of Venezuela was. And
this guy's further left than Bernie Sanders.
That's scary. That is scary. I mean, even if it looks like on paper that he's got no chance of winning, we can't count him out. Now, as a matter of fact, the way I see it is that we as conservatives, no matter how far ahead we are, we have to keep fighting like we're 10 miles behind.
Correct. You can never think that you've crossed the finish line. And the day the election's over and you win is when you start the campaign for the next election. You start planning for it. Otherwise, you're going to get beat. That's what Democrats have been doing for decades. The rules for radicals tell them to do that, and they don't care how much they lie, cheat, and steal. They'll do it. The problem with Republicans is a lot of us have scruples. Not all, but a lot of us have scruples, and we have morals, and we don't. I mean, in my race, I refuse to break the law. My opponent broke the law and won the race.
I think for the majority, but most Republicans just screw each other over. They're not, you know what I mean? They're not trying.
Well, the Republican Party screwed of the 4 candidates that weren't the one that they wanted, and they lied to us and said they weren't supporting any candidate and that they were neutral. And it was a wide open race when the clandestinely, financially, they supported and they carried. I mean, look, one financial donor to my opponent gave $8,000. One individual person in this district, $8,000 donation for a state legislative seat. And it's insane.
I got to know the answer to this question because every time I read from the FEC, it says that I can only donate, was it $3,000 or $3,500 per election?
$3,300. That's a federal election. Commonwealth, Pennsylvania puts no restriction on the amount of money individuals can donate to a political campaign for statewide office.
How do people give Kamala Harris $75 million?
They cannot give Kamala Harris. That's fraud. And when you see people like Ben Stiller wishing he was a black man, good Lord, when you see him saying he wants to give money, he's going to give this much money, he can't give it to the candidate because they're going to go to jail. They can donate it to a political action committee, which is what this dark money is. And that's all because of McCain-Feingold. That piece of hideous legislation, which silenced you and me, limiting how much we can give to political candidates, but let dark money come in from everywhere. So that's what that is.
I can give to a 527 PAC. I can give as much as I want to a 527 PAC.
Right.
But I can't give as much as I want to a campaign. So
but
if it's the candidate themselves, what is that, a 523?
No, you're limited to a presidential candidate. You can give $3,300 this year. That's the cap. As an individual, and you can give that to Trump, and you can also give it to Harris if you want.
Okay, so now how does a PAC transfer money to a PAC? So you get this guy, and this is weird to me. So what's his name out of Illinois? I can't think of his name. But he had $323 million in this PAC, which the majority of it was self-funded. Now he's going to transfer that all over to Kamala Harris's PAC, self-funded.
Well, that's how they get away with it. I mean, that's why McCain-Feingold was a disaster.
Create a PAC and go raise up millions and millions of dollars and
but then
rule because I'm going to give my back to Trump.
But then at the same time, you have Elon Musk making a commitment and then backing away from it and then coming back to it and then backing away from it. After Trump, they nearly tried to assassinate him. He said, I'm giving $45 million per month to the Trump campaign. Well, no. He's giving $45 million to a political action committee. And now Michigan is trying to throw shade on Elon Musk by claiming that political action committee has committed crimes in Michigan. And so it's already started with the lawfare against Elon Musk over that. So look, I mean, we have a corrupt, crooked system. The judicial system, the political system is corrupt. Our banking system has become corrupt because our corporate structures are corrupt. The whole country is rotten to the core.
Now, let me ask you this, Colonel. Do you think it's possible, because we know the left is going to play dirty, do you think it's possible that we could take the gloves off but not get our hands dirty? Or do we have to lower ourselves a little bit? I don't know. It's like,
Well, it's a tough spot to be in. I'm not going to advocate or call for people to misbehave because I believe in the rule of law. But
absolutely.
every
Yeah.
time the Republicans are not very good at cheating, when they do cheat, they tend to get caught. Look at Nixon.
Right.
The irony is Nixon didn't have to cheat. That election was his. He won it, and it's just stupidity, this arrogance, the hubris of office, and that's why term limits are a good idea. People don't get there forever. They know they got to get out, and if you want to accomplish something, you better get it done.
I think to Billy's question, it's one thing to take the gloves off and hit harder, but it's another thing to stoop to their level. And when you do that, now you've just lost everything. The liberal left has exposed itself for what it is. I sit there and listen to X Spaces, and I hear these guys on these conservative platforms come up and say, listen, I voted Democrat my whole life. I've been a Democrat my whole life. I'm a gay man. I support the Democrat Party. I believed in my rights. But you know what? Just to give them the finger, I'm voting for Trump this year because they totally left us.
Well, the same thing happened to Obama in the first election in 2008 against McCain, when it was, hope and change. He had a very significant turnout amongst the gay community for Obama, just because he was, he was different and they thought he was in favor of gays and homosexuality. But he was a strong advocate against gay marriage and was pretty clear about that, and never really spoke up for gay rights. So in his first term, there was almost nothing that was focused on the gay community in Obama's term. And he also came out vociferously against gay marriage in his first term. However, amongst the 5 million voters that he lost from 2008, 2012, when he went from 68 to 63 million votes, were many gay Americans. He said, had enough of this guy. Plus, people woke up and realized that he wasn't what he claimed to be, and so they left him. Of course, all those people were called white racist, even though they were a mix of peoples, because, white people wouldn't vote for him, except that that's how he got in office in the first place. White people voted for him. Anyway, so in his second term, because he was getting continuing pressure from advocacy groups in the gay community about his stance on homosexuality and gay marriage, he was in favor of gay marriage, suddenly in favor of it. And then he started sticking his nose in the business of Uganda as a distraction for other things like Benghazi and the failures there. So what he did is he threatened President Museveni in Uganda because they came up with an anti-homosexuality law, which is ironic. Homosexuality was already criminalized in Uganda. There's no need for a different law. In fact, so they did it. And it was so that I was in Uganda. I dealt with the fallout from this. I suddenly was no longer allowed to do training for the Ugandan military that was going to Somalia because their stance on homosexuality. I mean, what does got to do with security? It's so stupid. But it's Obama paid a heavy price, and then he just started pandering to the gay community, and that's what they do. They don't care about gays. They don't care about blacks. They don't care about women. They don't care about Jews or Iranians. They don't care about anybody. All they care about is craving political power and access to money.
Money and power. That's it.
Yeah.
That's all it's about, right, with them.
It's like watching The West Wing, which I never did watch. I assume it was about stuff like this.
Yes. Oh, wow. Time's winding down.
Yeah, we're running out of time here. But hey, Billy, we didn't get your take on Cori Bush going down in a flaming pile of turds. She's out. She's gone. The Wicked Witch is dead. That's along with Sparky the Fire Dog, Jamal Berman. That's 2 squad members that are out.
Well, if I had a beer open, I'd say I'd drink to that. It's good. Good, these people need to fall out of position and get a taste of reality.
Yep, I hear you.
I'd like to see Tina Forte grab some ground over there in New York City, 14th district, and knock AOC off her perch.
Yeah, we got to see, but whether it be this show or my show, wherever, we got to land an interview with Tina, see if we can make that happen.
That'd be pretty awesome.
It'll be tough, but I have talked to her in the past. So,
no, I'll tell you what, if AOC leaves office, I will throw a massive party.
it'll be a big one, huh?
We're gonna party like it's 1999.
And see, I don't know where AOC or her background is all that, but at least Tina Forte, she's there for her people. I mean, she's native to the Bronx, and you talk to her, she is a New Yorker all the way. even more than that idiot who lives in upstate New York. So,
well, she does have bartending on her resume, so we have to give her that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, Tina Forte is the real deal New Yorker. The accent, the attitude, everything.
Did you see the assistant district attorney from the Bronx who went to meet a 13-year-old boy in a Target parking garage? Didn't go well for him.
I'd
All right,
imagine
folks.
that's not good. All right,
No.
ladies and gentlemen, that's our bit for tonight. We hope you got something out of it. Join us again next week, same time, same place. Have a good week, and we gone.